Hello everyone, especially all of my sword and shield users. Today we are going to go over the new best sword and shield builds that have come about due to the new Gamma armor set that Arc Tempered Raydao has given us. And I'm very happy to say that whether you like to use Latent Power or not, there's something here for everyone. We are also going to go over if you should even use Latent Power, and I'll be providing two different builds depending on whether you prefer to use it or not, along with an additional bonus build. But before we get into the builds, we have to talk about the Latent Power situation. Now, unfortunately, latent power is one of the hardest skills to mathematically fit into a build due to the fact that it's just so inconsistent. It's an absolutely wonderful skill when it's active, but that's the problem. To activate it, you either need to lose about 130 health or be fighting a monster for 2 minutes. Both of those are pretty tall requirements, at least for most hunters whose entire goal is to hunt the monster as efficiently as possible, meaning taking little damage or time to complete the hunt. With that being said, hunts usually involve taking at least a few hits here and there, unless you're playing near perfectly. If that's the case for you, then latent power will have some decent value, especially against tougher monsters. But if you never get hit and your hunts end quickly, then latent power won't give you much mileage. So you kinda just have to be honest with yourself on whether or not latent power is for you. With all of that out of the way, the sword and shield sets that I'm going to be presenting here today are not going to be latent power 5 sets. Even though 50% affinity is nice, it's just not worth it due to there being better skills that are also more reliable. The new Raydao armor set is great for something besides latent power though. It also has the new group skill bonus Lord Soul going for it as well. It's arguably the new best group skill bonus in the game, and I can't wait to see what other monsters also get this group set bonus. Now the most important thing that you need to know about this skill is that it gives you a 5% raw attack increase, which is just straight up better than the 10 raw attack increase you get from wearing 4 pieces of Gormagala, at least when using endgame weapons. This skill does however have a downside, and that downside is that it will only last until you activate Guts, so you need to avoid doing that if you want to maintain maximum damage. Because of this, I recommend using the Feline Moxie food skill, which will activate before Guts, thus saving your damage. On the bright side, if your Guts does trigger, the other half of Lord Soul will activate, increasing your defense and resistance, which can help turn things around if you're struggling. Moving on to the actual builds themselves, the first build is going to be the Latent Power version. To make this build, you will need the Arc Tempered Raydao head, arms, and waist, along with the Zoshia chest and the normal Raydao legs. You will of course also need the Counter Charm 3. But to complete this build, you will also need 4 Tenderizer Jewels, 1 Chain Jewel, 1 Physique Jewel, and 1 Brace Jewel. This is going to be your theoretical maximum damage build, but whether it's actually the highest damage build for you is entirely going to depend on your latent power uptime. That's why we are using the Thunderous Roar 2 set bonus from 4-piece Raydao. It greatly extends latent power's duration to 3.5 minutes, more than enough time to finish most hunts before it runs out. With the 5 base affinity on the Ardian Sword and Shield, as well as Weakness Exploit 5, Latent Power 3, Maximum Might 3, and Agitator 2, it will be at exactly 100% affinity with all skills activated, or even higher on wounded parts. But I do have 2 more builds to share with you guys today, and to make this next one you're going to need the Arc Tempered Raydao head, arms, and waist, along with the Gore chest and legs, as well as the Counter Charm 3. As for the jewels you will need to complete this build, you will need 4 Tenderizer Jewels, 2 Sane Jewels, 1 Chain Jewel, and 1 Physique Jewel. This build is mainly going to be for speedrunners who will kill the monster before latent power activates, or really anyone who just doesn't want to use latent power for whatever reason. Now, the build does actually have latent power on it, but when I did the calculations for this set, I calculated for 0% latent power uptime. It's just here because Lord Soul is so good, and you can't really get it without it. I wouldn't recommend this build to most people, but if you don't want to use latent power, here is a great option. I do have an alternative to this set though, and to make it you're going to need the Arc Tempered Raydao head, Zoshia chest, Guardian Arcfeld arms, along with the Gore waist and legs. We will also need the Counter Charm 3. As for the jewels, it's going to be 3 Physique Jewels, 2 Mighty Jewels, 2 Sane Jewels, 2 Tenderizer Jewels, and 1 Chain Jewel. This build is very similar to the last one, except we have traded Lord Soul for the 2-piece core set bonus, and Constitution level 5. This set actually only does about 1% less damage, so if you value Constitution for maximum might uptime, or really any other reason, then it could definitely be worth it. Now, I haven't mentioned the actual weapon itself up until now, and that's because I assume everyone kinda knows what the best options are by this point. Especially considering it's basically the same for every build, but if you don't know or need a reminder, there's really only 2 good options for your sword and shield, the best of which is going to be an Ardian sword and shield, because the stats are just better than everything else you can craft. For the production bonus, you want to get as much attack as possible, while also prioritizing paralysis as your element type, because that's going to give you openings to get in more damage. However, you can also use blast or whatever element the monster is weakest to. In most cases, you will get the most damage when matching your element to the monster's weakness, but having 5 perfect sword and shields, one of which being for each element, is pretty unrealistic for most people, and why I recommend just using paralysis as a one-size-fits-all. As for the reinforcement bonus, you really just want 1 sharpness increase and ideally 4 attack increases, just to really maximize your raw damage. However, if you don't have that or something very similar, your other option is going to be Zoshia's Sword and Shield, which is only a little bit weaker than a perfect Ardian. It doesn't have paralysis, but you can just craft it so you can't really complain. As for the weapon decos themselves, you definitely want to prioritize getting something in there to help out with your sharpness, whether that be Master's Touch or Razor Sharp. I usually prefer Master's Touch, but I actually recommend Razor Sharp if you're using Latent Power, because it's just more consistent. As for the rest of the slots, you'll want to be using Offensive Guard if you're using an Ardian weapon, along with as much critical boost as your weapon can fit in. But if you're using Zoshia's Sword and Shield, just forget the Offensive Guard and go with critical boost. The reasoning here is critical boost gives by far the most damage for any build with decent affinity, which all of these sets have. So don't bother thinking about attack boost or critical eye. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to drop a like and consider checking out this video next.